Everybody understands that there is a risk there will be no Palestine left to recognise unless the international community work together towards two states.
That decision to recognise on the path to a two-state being created would make a positive difference.
What the bloody hell is going on with Australia's leadership? Now, mate, this isn't some cooked-up conspiracy or a late-night rant over a few cold ones. This is dead serious. We've got our Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, making phone calls and cooking up plans that make you wonder if he's living in the same Australia the rest of us are. I mean, here we are, cost of living's gone through the roof, housing's a bloody nightmare, farmers are struggling, and people are lining up at food banks, and our government's #1 priority is recognizing a state 14,000 kilometers away. You're kidding, right? It's almost laughable if it wasn't so dangerously real. Albanese, the bloke who's supposed to be leading Australia, rings up Mahmoud Abbas, the same Mahmoud Abbas who's been in power since before TikTok was a thing, to tell him, hey mate, we're thinking of recognizing a Palestinian state. And not just thinking. According to the official statement, we're committed. Committed to what? Another endless geopolitical headache that's got bugger all to do with us? If you wanted proof that Canberra's priorities are more cooked than a servo pie, this is it. Before we dive into this absolute train wreck, where Albanese throws Aussie taxpayers under the bus, plays peacemaker with dictators, and the media acts like it's all sunshine and rainbows, smash that like button like you're reclaiming your country from clueless leadership. Subscribe if you're sick of watching your hard-earned dollars disappear overseas while real issues at home get ignored. And don't forget to grab the Make Politics Honest Again shirt, links in the description. Now don't get me wrong, this isn't about taking sides. This isn't about waving the flag for Israel or Palestine. That's not our fight. But when you've got Australian taxpayers' money potentially being funneled into conflict zones, when you've got blokes and shillers struggling to pay their power bills while a foreign aid goes walkabout, then Australians have every right to crack the shits. Let's rewind a bit. Albanese chats with Abbas, a bloke who hasn't faced an election in 20 years. That's right, 20 years into a 4-year term. Sounds more like a dictator than a democratic leader, doesn't it? And Albanese reckons this is the kind of leadership we want to endorse. It's like giving a 5-star review to a restaurant you've never eaten at, except the restaurant's been on fire for decades and the head chef's been accused of, well, a whole lot more than just undercooking the lamb. Even worse, Albanese says we'll likely make this recognition official at the United Nations. You know, because nothing screams, we're looking after our own like a big PR move on the world stage. And you better believe there'll be cameras flashing and hands shaking. But behind the smiles, what does it actually mean for Australians? More division. More headlines. More of our dollars being tossed into the abyss, while Aussies in rural towns still don't have proper mental health services or clean drinking water. And then there's Penny Wong, our foreign minister who somehow decided it'd be a good idea to chuck another $20 million in aid towards Gaza, including $6 million through the United Nations. You know, the same organization that's been caught with its pants down more times than we can count. Allegations of aid being siphoned off, stolen, or ending up in the wrong hands? She'll be right, mate. Just close your eyes and hope for the best. It's like a bad pub raffle. You hand over your coin, don't get your ticket, and then somehow the bloke running the show walks out with a brand new telly. Except in this case, we're not losing a few bucks and a slab of beer. We're potentially propping up terrorist organizations and corrupt regimes. All while pretending we're the moral compass of the world. Give me a break. Here's the real kicker. Albanese reckons this move will bring peace. Dead set. That recognizing a state with no agreed borders, no clear leadership, and a long history of internal violence will magically end decades of conflict. If it wasn't so stupid, you'd think it was satire. But nah, mate. This is policy. Real taxpayer-funded policy, backed by ministers who reckon they're doing the right thing. But let's talk about borders for a second. How the hell do you recognize a country that doesn't even have defined borders? Are we just picking lines on a map like it's a round of risk? And who enforces those borders? Hamas? Abbas? Neither of them recognizes Israel's existence, and yet we're expected to believe they'll suddenly respect boundaries? It's like giving the keys to the ute to two blokes who can't agree which direction to drive in, while we sit in the backseat blindfolded, hoping we don't hit a tree. And before you say it, no, this isn't about ignoring humanitarian crises. Aussies are some of the most generous, fair dinkum people on the planet. We help our mates, we donate during bushfires, floods, and droughts. But there's a line between helping those in need and being played for mugs. And right now, it feels like our government's handing out blank checks in the name of global PR, while ignoring the people they were actually elected to serve. Let's talk about how this looks to the world. You reckon Hamas isn't watching? You reckon they're not popping bottles every time a Western nation says, "We support recognition"? Of course they are. Because every symbolic gesture, every vote, every well-intentioned statement is twisted into a headline, "See? Even the Aussies agree with us." And just like that, we're no longer neutral, we're a pawn in someone else's propaganda war. Meanwhile, here in Australia, we've got real issues. Rural suicide rates are through the roof. Veterans are being shafted. Indigenous communities still don't have access to basic services. But yeah, let's prioritize symbolic recognition of a foreign state that's been in a state of chaos since before half the country had broadband internet. And the media? Don't even get me started. Half of them are too gutless to ask the real questions. Too afraid of being called names or stepping on toes. We used to have journos who chased the truth like it owed them money. Now it's all fluff, filtered soundbites, and political cheerleading. They're too busy crafting headlines about historic decisions and bold diplomacy to ask the one question that actually matters: how does this help Australia? And mate, let's be real, it doesn't. Not one bit. This is about optics, not outcomes, about looking good on the world stage while the house burns down back home. We've got a Prime Minister playing global peacemaker, while families in Western Sydney can't even afford a second bag of groceries. Priorities, eh? Now, some people will say, it's more complicated than that. And yeah, sure, geopolitics is messy. But when the basics are this botched, you don't need a PhD in international relations to smell the nonsense. It's not about being left or right, pro this or anti that. It's about common sense, and there's bloody none of it in Canberra right now. And here's the part that'll really rattle a few cages. This isn't a one-off. It's a pattern of symbolic politics over substance. From the voice referendum flop to reckless spending sprees to soft on crime policies that leave Aussies feeling less safe in their own suburbs, we're seeing a government more interested in headlines than hard truths. And if you dare call it out, you're labelled extreme, racist, ignorant, whatever bloody buzzword they feel like using that day. But here's the thing, real Australians aren't buying it anymore. We're tired of being lectured, tired of our concerns being swept under the rug, tired of being told that our problems come second to someone else's conflict on the other side of the planet. So where do we go from here? Well, we start by remembering that charity begins at home. We fix our broken systems before we go fixing someone else's. We take care of our veterans before funding someone else's army. We protect our farmers before we prop up corrupt officials with aid packages. And we remember that being a good global citizen doesn't mean being a blind one. Now, to all the politicians who think this video is too spicy, tough luck. You don't get to control the narrative anymore. Australians are waking up. We're asking the hard questions. And we're demanding answers. If you're an Aussie watching this, I want you to really think. When was the last time your government actually stood up for you? When was the last time you felt represented, listened to, protected? Because if you're like most of us, it's been a while. And if you're a poly watching this, maybe, just maybe, it's time to shut off the international Zoom calls, stop virtue signaling at the UN, and focus on your own bloody backyard. Because while you're off trying to be a world hero, the people who voted for you are being left behind. This is Australia. We're tough, we're fair, and we call it how we see it. And what we're seeing right now is a government more concerned with looking good than doing good. And that, mates, is the real bloody scandal. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video before more taxpayer dollars vanish into another foreign aid black hole. And where you'll make politics honest again, shirt loud and proud. Because let's face it, honesty packed its bags in Canberra, and Albanese isn't even pretending to look for it. Thanks for watching, and remember, leadership isn't about global headlines or symbolic gestures. It's about looking after your own people first. And Albo, you had one job. And you blew it.